The latest Sixth Doctor Adventures box set, The Trials of a Time Lord, featured the return of Queen Perpigillium of Krontep. But this isn't the first time we found out what happened to dear Perry Brown after her unfortunate fate, or so it seemed, in The Trial of a Time Lord. Perhaps the unfortunate fate was marrying Brian Blessed. We'll never know. Here in The Widow's Assassin by Nev Fountain, we saw an alternative idea as to what could have happened to her following that TV story. Back in October 2014, nearly 10 years ago, this came out. And so we thought, what better time to do a throwback to it? Here we are, The Widow's Assassin. What do we think of this one?
Oh, this is one of the best Sixth Doctor and Perry stories. Nev Fountain is such a wonderful writer. He's so sharp and witty with his dialogue. This story, it feels very Capaldi, with the Sixth Doctor waiting for Perry's sort of forgiveness.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's an interesting start to this story because he turns up to, rescue Perry. It's not been too long since her wedding, but instead he ends up getting locked up on her orders and remains so for quite a while. The wedding cake hasn't even been fully eaten yet by the time that King Akranos is murdered, assassinated.
Gordon's alive! He's
Hmm.
dead.
Uh, and so the Sixth Doctor has to team up with Perry to investigate this uh, bizarre assassination. And that's just the start of this bizarre story, really. It goes to some wild places, and it's so funny.
Guard 1 and Guard 2 are a particular highlight.
Love those
And
Welsh boys.
yeah, and leading to one of the most tragic moments in the story as well.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
beautiful.
it does go from high comedy to high tragedy at the flip of a coin, but it never feels like it's doing a disservice to Ela,
Hmm.
really. Both the laughs hit and the emotions hit really well.
And you've got so many wonderful, colourful characters within it.
Hmm.
Especially when we get to sort of part two, when we're finding a suitor for another royal.
Yeah. I love Terratrak and Reverend Flittimus. They're
Is
a
that
very
John
good double
Banks?
act as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andrew Dickens. It's a very colourful voices there.
Mm.
I
And
mean,
then you,
even Colin gets to join in.
yes, it's great. It's so good. And then you've got Wolsey, Constable Wolsey, who's a
Who is a
sheep.
sheep? Yep.
This is interesting because like the cover, you don't quite know who's who on there.
I mean, I
Uh,
believe Terratrak is the one on the left.
yeah, that makes sense.
The because you mentioned, his plumage and his feathers and such. I don't know about the bottom one. Is that perhaps Harcross the Ever Patient? He sort
Mm.
of gives a bit of a creepy Perry Stan vibe.
Because I think that
The one on I don't know who the one on the right is.
I
Is
think
that
that's for Sniff,
Reverend?
the truth one who's like,
Ah, the
also,
sprite.
yeah, I
Yeah,
reckon that's a sprite.
maybe. Yeah, whatever the case, all these characters are wonderful, and yeah, so many funny moments. Very well characterized. Ned Fountain is a really strong writer, and I think he was the perfect one to bring Perry back.
I mean, he's
Uh,
married to the lady, so
exactly. Yeah.
so it gives Perry some good stuff to do, and I think the
Gives
mess,
Nicola some good stuff to do beyond just Perry.
mm, really does. And I think this is a really good story for Colin and exploring sort of the Doctor's youth,
Yeah.
and it's got a good message about sort of loneliness within it,
I
and
think
like,
it's guilt as well.
yeah, that's the
And it's
main
that
thing.
question of, is seeking forgiveness for something we feel guilty about? Are we doing that for the other person who we feel guilty towards, or are we doing it for ourselves so that,
Yes.
we feel relieved of that burden? Do we seek forgiveness for them or for ourselves. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it certainly is an interesting exploration of both Perry's character and the Sixth Doctor's as well. And Colin and Nicola give it their all throughout this story.
Yeah, and
It's a chunky one,
It
but
is.
it justifies it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it's conspiracy. It's twist and turn central. You're always on your toes, guessing what's going to happen next. And the Doctor's
I mean,
always.
I'd certainly forgotten a few twists throughout this since my last listen, so it was somewhat fresh going back to that. Sometimes it was things that happened and be like, oh yeah, I remember that now, and other times it'd be like, wow, that still caught me off guard.
Yeah, I mean, I've not listened to it since 2014, so this is a good one to revisit.
Yeah.
'Cause
I mean,
oh, go on.
I do feel like there's maybe one twist too far in part 4.
Yes.
I feel like that sort of undercut where we were going before that. But other than that, I don't really have any problems with this story.
No,
I just have such a good time with it.
it's perfectly plotted. Everything's there for you to go. That's a really clever mystery, so wrapped up nicely. Like you say, it balances humor and tragedy so beautifully, well, that everything just works on every level really for it.
Yeah. They're these very heightened characters, but they still are treated with respect and truth.
Yeah.
And I think that makes them all the more real.
They're colourful as the 80s and Colin's coat. And I think that's the thing, because you could easily send it up. And some of these characters, they are quite sent up, They're heightened, exaggerated, great things,
But I don't think you couldn't send it up.
You have
They
to.
send it up, but they don't chew the scenery as such.
No, you're always sort of waiting for them to come on because you're like, oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're very almost cartoonish, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as an insult, because there are some brilliant cartoons out there that will be hilarious one minute and still quite deep and meaningful the next. This has that kind of vibe about it, your Gravity Falls type of show. Should
we give it a rating?
I think it's a 9 for me.
Oh yeah, 9. Yeah, this is the start of a really strong trilogy, and I'm sure we'll get on to the next story.
Yeah, I mean, as we say, it's been 10 years coming up, so yeah, I think some anniversary videos are called for with these ones because there's some good stuff.
Really good stuff.
I really enjoyed going back to this one. It's sort of one I didn't appreciate enough at the time. I had fun with it, but I don't think I quite got it the way I did on this re-listen.
Yeah, it's one I knew I liked, but yeah, I just adore it.
Yeah, I didn't know I loved it. I knew I liked it. I didn't know I loved it.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm glad that we chose this one to go back to because, we needed 3 releases. Well, we didn't need. We put this burden upon ourselves to, think of, it's 40 years of Colin. He's got Androgams, Davros, and Cybermen going up against him in the trials of a Time Lord. So, we didn't have any Androgam stories, but we did have Queen Perry. And so we thought we'd go back to the original Queen Perry. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, and it's the better version. If you want an older Perry Sixth Doctor story, this is the one you want.
Yeah, I'd say so. Sorry, Trials. Yeah, our review of Trials is already out. If you want to go check that out, it will be followed by a spoiler video on Trials if you want to know a bit more about what worked, what didn't for us with that story. And we'll finally finish off this series of Sixth Doctor throwbacks / current reviews with Curse of Davros sometime soon.
Yeah.
Look forward to that, and we'll see you then, or
whenever,
now, or some other time. Time is immaterial. Time is relative. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.